Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Connecting Caregivers Presents Candid Conversations. And with me today, I have Patty Collamer, and this is one of her books, One Simple Breath, which I just love. I tell you what I love most of all is your little intentions on inhale and exhale, which we could talk about in a little bit, because I think that's just so fabulous that you have that in the book. So first,
Good.
tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Patty Collamer, and I live up in South Central Pennsylvania. I know you're down in sunny Florida. We are sunny, but we're cold as usual this time of year, so nothing surprising.
Yeah.
I started my caregiving journey back in June of 2007, the day that my mom suffered a stroke, and slowly found myself taking on responsibilities of advocate and caregiver to both her and my dad. She passed away in 2015. And since then, I continue to take care of my dad every day. And he is a fabulous 98 years of age. He lives 8 minutes from my door, and I can see him anytime I want. And for me, that makes me in a very, very happy,
Yeah.
feel very, very lucky. So that's how I came to be a caregiver.
It's funny you
My
say we gradually become a caregiver kind of thing. We start helping with a little bit. And when I first started
Mhm.
doing this years ago, I had to educate caregivers that they were caregivers before I could help them because I'm the faithful daughter. I'm the good spouse. I'm not a caregiver. Yeah, you are.
Right. You don't think that just stopping and picking up three more things and on the way and then calling for appointments, and you don't really associate that with caregiving. Someone's just asking you to do something, you can, so you
Right.
do it. I think it's sometimes for a lot of us, it happens after that first stress-filled
Yeah.
afternoon where suddenly something weighs on your shoulders and you realize, I've been doing this 24/7 for a while now, and I'm tired, and
Yeah.
I might need some help, which is very difficult for myself. And I know a lot of caregivers that just feel like if they did a little bit more, planned a little bit better, they would have this thing down. And there is really no having it down. It's a dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, there's lots of pieces, and even when you start fitting them together, something happens and knocks the table and they all go which way, and you kind of
Exactly.
not start over. You've learned things, but yeah, it's never going to fit, and it's never going to be quite what we would like. So one of the things that I try to do in the book is help caregivers try to let go of some of that expectation that we have that things will work out. If we've spent all this time, money, and energy planning care and it doesn't work out, we haven't failed. We can kind of let go of that plan and we'll just make another one. We're
Yeah.
just going to go, we have to put one step in front of the other. And sometimes just a breath literally can open just enough space in your mind and in your heart so that your thought can be reasonable, positive, and effective. It's not always, but at least you're there together. You're not just reacting to the situation from one set of circumstances to the next, which
Well,
is
I put reminders on my phone for me to breathe or to say a prayer. So,
good
I'll get
idea.
this little ring. I go, okay, Linda, it's time to stop for just a couple minutes.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I, there,
And people many times think, oh, if I ask for help, I'm weak. No, if you ask for help, you're strong.
we can't be all things to our care partners. I don't know so much. I feel a lot of days I don't feel like I know much at all. And
Right.
I'm winging this. And you know what? My dad has never been 98 and a half years old either. So he's winging it.
Exactly.
So we're very fortunate that, somehow as a team, we usually make it through doctor's appointments and lawyer appointments or whatever needs to be taken care of together. but it takes the two of us, because I forget I forget
Yeah.
things a lot, and he remembers some things that I forget. In his situation, his hearing is basically gone, and like a lot of caregivers I know, their parents worked as teams too. And my mom couldn't see well, but she could hear through walls, outside.
Right.
We never got away with anything.
Yeah.
So she was the ears and my dad was the sight. So just like other caregivers, when my mom passed away, that part of his negotiating through a day
Yeah.
was really just fell off the map. It was just gone. And that was the first thing that became clear, is that we've got to do all we can for the hearing. So I need to make his phone calls, and which, can go a lot of different ways. Not everybody understands when I'm making the phone call for my dad and there's finances involved, that he has to get on the phone and give
Right.
permission. And not everybody's patient all the
Right.
time. That's why I love it when you're always saying laugh, because whew, if I didn't laugh,
Yeah.
I would be a very sad I'd be a very sad person. And I've seen caregivers they're just
I
burdened.
lost their laughter. Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it. You can feel the heaviness, the
Yeah.
burden that they feel. And but I always try to bring up the ridiculous, because you don't have to talk to a caregiver for more than 5 minutes and you just even hint of something crazy that happened to you yesterday. And they're like, oh, you think that's okay. Wait, I've
Exactly.
got one. I've got one for
Exactly.
you. And you just look at each other and you stand in line and share a story in the Walmart, checkout. And
Yeah.
you realize, both of you realize, you're not by yourself. This is a crazy, mixed up world, and we're just as
And
much
you're not
crazy.
alone, though. You're not alone.
No,
There are
no, we're not.
there are people that want to help.
And I confess that since I wrote the book, I have been able to open up to discovering, your tips that you put out every week. Why didn't I know that 6 months ago? Or, there are resources, but for a lot of caregivers, and I think of the moms that have children that are
Oh my
at
goodness.
home with the school, and the parents that
Yeah.
are in lockdown, and my heart, it's just amazing. And they really have to give themselves an opportunity to find those resources, because I didn't look for them. I didn't have time, or I thought, I have to go to work.
Right.
I have to get to my dad's before 5. I got to see my mom before 4:45 when she goes to dinner, because otherwise his life, she's going to
Right.
be miserable to him, and I can't be responsible for that.
Right.
So you're running around. And that's one of the reasons that I think a lot of authors write, and that is to write down something that they use that somebody else might be able to use. So the book is short on purpose. The book is broken up into really small chunks so that you
Right.
could open it up, see something, and then, close it, because the doorbell, the phone, the dog,
Exactly.
whatever happened, and you feel like, okay, I got something, some words got into my head, and
Yeah.
it helped me think a little bit differently. And I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's craziness, and I'm in
And
this.
I love the way you wrote it, because there are a lot of books out there on caregiving and more coming out every day. And some of them are so darn dense. A caregiver can't even get through the first 4 pages.
It is a lot, and how much care and time they took to write that, and it will be a resource at some point for someone. I'm sure of that.
Exactly.
It's just, and the other thing that if I look back to the book that I wrote about my mom, called Grace on the Ledge. Her name was Grace, and that book was really written to remember her the way that I remembered her. And when I went at that time when I started writing down stories about my childhood in the 60s and how crazy it was with 5 brothers and sisters and how crazy fun it was now that I look back, I was collecting lots of information like caregivers. I'm surrounded here at my desk. I have my dad's file right here, and I have a series of files here. And you're getting all of this information from the legal side, insurance side,
Right.
benefits, all health side. Um, it got so serious and heavy for me that I just started writing down funny stories in my journal because I didn't want to forget that, when my mom stopped talking, she had aphasia, but she talked a lot and loudly for, 82
Yeah.
years. People heard her before they saw her. And I wanted not to forget that because I just think caregivers respond to those that they care for, to the person that's in front of them right then. And it wasn't until I was at skilled care for those 100 days with my mom after a stroke that I started to finally chat with another daughter who was there every day. She drove 2 hours to have lunch with her father every
Wow.
day. And he was a NASA scientist, and he couldn't speak, he couldn't feed himself. And I'll never forget just feeling like I wish I had known him because she knows her dad.
Right.
And he had a very full, complicated, smart, contributed so much. So that's why I wrote the book about my mom, because all of the resources that I were getting were like you were talking about, Linda, serious and heavy. And
Yeah.
they talked about caregiver stress. And boy, if I read another book about caregiver stress, I'd have had more
Exactly.
stress. I was just like, so I just wanted to lighten this up and talk about what my mom was going through in real time, and then look back to, when she dressed my sister and I up like dolls, and we would go visiting older neighbors, in those petticoats that hurt you to sit.
Yes.
And it was just like you'd sinned or something. And this was your penance. You were going to sit there with crossed ankles with your white
Right.
frilly fufu socks on. And if they asked you if you wanted something to eat, we were instructed to say no, because we had our fancy sweaters on. Of course, we'd been starving. We were children. We were always starving. So that's kind of the direction that I took, because the seriousness, I got that. I got
Yeah.
that in reality
Yeah.
every day. And I had a lot of fun remembering and realizing it was great for me. I know you do too, Linda, encourage journaling. It can be, it's a gift to yourself.
Yes. Well,
It
I
really
just had a
is.
journaling workshop yesterday, and the first question I asked everybody is just write a little bit of something about your favorite Christmas. Oh, and it was fun, and we laughed and we shared, and we all had so many similar things because we're all around the same age. You know what I mean? And it
Mm-hmm.
was just joyful. And if we didn't have that journaling workshop and we didn't have that prompt, we wouldn't have had that conversation.
Right. And really, in the scheme of the universe, how long did that take?
Yeah.
It just, and that's why I come down to a breath. We take more than 20,000 breaths a day, and we think nothing of it. It's just one follows the next, follows the
Yeah.
next. But we have such an opportunity as caregivers to connect with that in such a powerful, peaceful way. Um, and that's, we don't have to commit to anything.
Right.
We're going to breathe regardless. We're going to
Right.
breathe. And all I do is point out that at the top of a breath and the bottom of a breath, there's a pause. It's there. We just
Yeah.
don't stop and look at it. And what are you going to do with that? What
Yeah.
are you
And,
going to do
and
with it?
not just yourself, can help your loved one. My brother has Parkinson's. I was on the phone with him this morning. I'm like, David, breathe. Just breathe. And after a little while, he's like, oh, he like came off the ledge.
Yeah, you can, right. You can see it in their jaw, in their shoulders. You can almost, once you tune into it, you really do notice it in other people. And your instinct as a caregiver, I think, is to do what you can where you can. So
Right.
what did you do when your brother was breathing up here? You don't have to count the breaths. You know where they're coming from. It's not getting to his brain. It's just getting him to the next word out of his mouth.
Right.
And, I'm not going anywhere.
Yep.
Bring it down, let it go. Let it just let it out, let it
Yeah.
go for just a second. I'm not saying, we go through life la-di-da. I'm not a la-di-da
Yeah.
person. I want to be. Maybe when I grow up, I'll be that way, but I'm not that way yet. And I don't think it's happening soon. My family doesn't either. But through the practice, there's a concept introduced in the book called Even-Mindedness, or upeka. And a lot of times people look at me and go, well, even-mindedness means, you just don't let things bother you. Things come and go, whatever, good, bad, you're just like totally even. And I said, well, I think evenness and balance are overrated. I've never experienced it, maybe
Yeah.
for a moment. But when things are out of whack, that because your body and your mind are really just arguing with one another
Yeah.
constantly. That's why you can't sleep, you can't eat, because there's this conversation that's not very positive. And if we learn to accept the fact that, like, we know that all things change, we can, with a breath, understand that no matter how bad this is at this moment, and this is all I've got, this moment, because I'm going to have to go out of this room and figure out what to do next. I can know that it will not last forever. It
Right.
will not last forever. Just like when I'm with, we have a new granddaughter, when I'm with her and I look at her sleeping and she, has gained 10 pounds when she went to sleep. She just seems heavier. I look at her with such joy and a trusting abandon. She's just sleeping. And
Yeah.
I think this is going to change. So in this moment, I am appreciating and loving and joyful in that moment, because I know even for her, we don't know, 2 hours, she might decide to crab out. I don't know, she's getting teeth. What can we do?
Right.
So I'm willing to practice every day a breath in and a breath out, knowing that my frustration is gonna go, and I'm still
Right.
here, and I can still be mad on the inhale, and I can be frustrated on the exhale, and those breaths are gonna change, and I'm gonna notice. I'm gonna notice.
Yeah. Yeah. And your loved one will notice too,
What?
because
Mhm.
that they feed off how we are.
Yeah, and that
We're
reminds
all yeah. They're gonna be the same way.
and just like children, we know that with children, they'll pick it up. They pick it up. And your care partners are, and my dad, he's looking at my mouth to read my lips. So he is so keyed in on how I'm doing.
Right.
And, some days I probably should win an Oscar. Other days he's probably letting me get away with a lot.
Yeah.
That's how we go. And you made me think of when we were talking about laughing. Whenever I find a laugh or a chuckle or whatever, I try so hard to involve my dad,
Yeah.
because if it's something that we both saw, we get at his all level care community where he lives, we get colorful half sheet, quarter sheet. I don't know where they get all this colored paper, and they just send these memos out. I guess they think they need to make it worth going down to get the mail. My dad
Yeah.
and I, we're just like, email me, I'll deal with it. But
Yeah.
we'll go down there and he collects them, and he's reading them and he's looking at the words, and they're telling us that they're going to sweep the sidewalk next week in front of the apartments. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and we both just started laughing. Apparently that was terribly important for us to know. And
Yes.
seems like it's nothing, but we laughed
Yeah.
because it was funny. It's just, life is too funny to take so seriously all the time.
My dad used to always like to tell jokes. Then he lost his speech. But my dad was a printer, so he had all his jokes printed on business cards. And he would hand them out wherever he went. And every doctor and every person wanted to be with him because he wasn't that old, crabby old person complaining about everything. He was always bringing a laugh to the table.
What a gift.
Yeah.
How lucky were you?
I still have them. I pass them out here and there. There's one is a joke about a stewardess. Every time I go on the plane, I give it to them. I say, "But this is from my dad," and they always come and they bring me an extra drink. It's like,
well, wouldn't you? Isn't it great? And it's through these practices, I have had the opportunity to, I'm sure like you do, when you see somebody, a cashier, what a day, or somebody in line in front of you was cross with them for, I don't know what. It's not her, she's just doing the best. This is not her life. This is what she's doing to make some money. To offer them a laugh. It's almost instinctive, and they're so surprised when they establish eye contact. When you go, they say, "How are you doing?" And I go, "Well, I'm not working. You're the one I'm not standing here in line, just getting hot." And they just relax a little bit.
Yeah. And as I walk away, I always say, "Have a delicious day." And they go, "Oh, hey,
oh my gosh,
idea.
I'm hungry. I want chocolate." And it takes nothing for us to do that.
Right.
And why not? Because there's a lot of days as a caregiver where no matter what we do, the situation is not resolved and we still had to go. And we're going to come back to it in an hour or tomorrow and check in on it and do what we can, make the calls, get the doctor, do whatever we need to do. But then if I go from that situation over to the pharmacy and someone else there is struggling, it helps me help them. It helps me because I need to feel, I think I want to feel like I'm doing something for someone to lighten the load, at least a little bit, because it's especially in the last, couple of years. Come on, we're all, the baseline stress level for all of us is high. Caregivers, we've had to cope with these lockdowns.
Yeah.
And
isolation.
That separation is not just hard on your heart. It equals anxiety and worry. When I couldn't see my dad, I felt like I was tethered to an island and he was on his own, and I would pull myself in and drop food. And that was interesting to see how it was going to get there. And I had to wait outside till he came to his balcony to tell me, salute, I got it. He couldn't hear. Yeah. So we're doing all of this. I involved the neighbors downstairs with my signs. I would take signs. They kind of thought that was pretty cool. They didn't, it was entertaining for them, I guess. I don't know. And then I would let myself out again and then go home and think, is he going to fall? Is he going to burn himself? Is his hearing aid going to fall down the disposal? Right. I don't know. Right. I don't know. And that, you can't underestimate what that stress did for caregivers, because I think we're still, we're still ready for that.
Her husband agreed to go to a community, and he went into the community, and the next week they locked it down. And he said to her, you left me here on purpose. He was convinced that she knew this was going to happen. And their marriage of like 50 years almost broke up over it, because he was so angry with her because he didn't understand that why she couldn't see him. And he did pass away. But the stress of that for the caregiver was just, for both of them, was just so terrible.
It is, even on a, I don't know about for me, even on a good day with my mom down in skilled care, there were a lot of times I was talking to some of the providers down there and I wondered if I was speaking English because I wasn't communicating well. I thought I had lost it, you know.
Yeah.
And if you combine the challenges of communicating what you want to have happen for your loved one, and you combine that with a lot of information that we don't know about COVID, you've got a very stress filled. There's no way around it. It is stress filled, and when you can't have face to face interaction to kind of clarify things, it gets more and more complicated, and people get angry, and people get misunderstandings happen. And I'm nine toes Irish. We hold grudges for generations. So don't get in my don't get in my grudge path because I can't let that go. I have to breathe.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself that this person did not see that the same way I did. It's not her dad. Of course, it's not her dad. And I need to try to rephrase that. But it's part of the role as caregivers to communicate with whomever you need to convey information or a request in a way that it's going to be received.
And we want to be very kind with those people because they're taking
their jobs.
care of our most precious things, and they have a tough time. How many people do they have to take care of, and then they have a personal life with their own family.
They get relation. I think when my mom passed away in February, they had lost in skilled care. I think she was the 8th resident since that January 1st. The bereavement, the workers themselves, they needed help. And and the more you give care, and if there's a facility involved, the more you learn about the politics and the business of it. And that's something I wish I didn't know, but that can even be complicating.
Yeah.
You're trying to find out one piece of information, you get a whole lot more than you want to know about now.
Right.
And how does that fit in with giving care? Well, I don't know, but here I am. And you find out who to talk to, 1 level up, 2 level up. What do you say? How do you say it?
When do you say it?
The timing
is a big thing there.
Timing is everything, right?
And maybe sometimes you go take a walk and take a few breaths before you go to talk to somebody.
Well, and I was fortunate. I had about half a mile of carpet between my father's apartment and my mom's room. Boy, did I need that.
Yeah.
Because I would go to her, to him, and then with messages back from him to her. And I needed that space and that time, that just sort of mindless walking where I could concentrate with your step. And I do advocate putting words to breath when you are moving.
Yeah.
Because I think caregivers are in perpetual motion. If we're sitting down, we're still in perpetual motion. Our mind is where we're going to be going next. And that's okay. You don't need to go to a chair and find a relaxing room where it's quiet. If you can find one of those, nail it shut, because I don't have one of those in my house. We have people that think I know things and dogs that want things. So do what you can where you are, and you have the breath within you.
I have one woman who was having a hard time with dealing with some of the staff at the place where her mom was. And she said she sat down one day and she realized part of the problem was herself, because she was so upset and angry, like when she approached them. So she said every time, what she does now, if she has to go there, as she gets out of the car, she's walking into the community, she says, I know they're going to help me today. I know they're going to be open to my suggestions. I know we're going to find a solution. And she said everything has changed since she started doing that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And the one woman in the community said to her, what happened to you? And she said, I started paying a little more attention to everything that was going on, just not my own little world.
Right. If we can listen and look and learn, That's how we become compassionate people. That's how we figure out what to do for the best with what we have, with what we know. And feeling for her, I think feeling that you're all on the same side makes all the difference. If you feel like you're going at and or for some of us it's the shift. Okay, if I wanted something to happen, I knew I wanted Christine on that nurse's desk because she got me. Like I didn't have to explain everything. But boy, if it was transition time around 2:30, 3:30, oh, not a good time to make a request because they were going through changes. They had to just share charts. They had to do all of their job. And here's Patty. Oh, I want the shake that my mom, what was I
Exactly.
what was I thinking? So you learn, you learn. And another reason why I love journaling is that you can look back, 6 months, you just flip back pages and you go, wow, I haven't had to do that in a long time. I think I learned something along this way, somehow or another, or things were really different then. She could really say that to me. She could talk to me. She could talk to my daughter on the phone. And how that has changed a lot of things, not to be sad or burdened by it, but to know, again, that whole concept of letting go of how things are right this minute, because that is the most hopeful thing I've ever learned, that when things are bad, it will not be forever. So I'm okay. It's not okay right now. I don't know how it's going to be tomorrow, but I know that things are changing constantly.
Yeah, so, it was very interesting when we were doing the journaling workshop yesterday. We were talking about goals for the next year, and my caregivers looked at me like, "Give me a break, Linda. Like, you want me to do some goals here?
I'm trying to get dinner."
Yeah. So I said, you know what I want you to do before you even think about any goals? I want you to flip through your journals, and I want you to write down 2 things that you accomplished last year. And they were like, whoa, they started looking at their stuff. They started patting themselves on the back. They said, I remember when things were so bad and then I changed something up or something happened. I did really well. And it made them so much open to then looking to a next step because we're so hard on ourselves.
What a great idea to do that in that order. Instead, that gives me an idea. Next time somebody says something, I go, well, look back and see it. And now, because just even remembering what they did, be like, that when that was happening, I said to myself, when I get through this, I'm going to do this downstairs. And I never did that. Well, I'm going to do that tomorrow. There's a goal.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're right. Caregivers don't set goals because we don't feel that we have the control to set a goal. We don't want to be disappointed. Who wants to set a goal if something always happens to change it? But it's okay to change your goal.
That's another discussion we had yesterday.
It really is, because I don't even want to do that anymore. I don't want to be good at that anymore. I'm on to the next thing.
So Patty, where can our caregivers find you?
PattyCollamer.com is a website. The book is available, of course, on Amazon, and it was published through Ingram, those of you who know books at all. So you can get it at any bookstore, big box, Target, whatever, they'll order it. And but you can always come to the website and either follow the links there or just send me an email.
And what is the last thing you want our caregivers to hear today? What is the most important last thing you want to say to them?
That you are doing enough. It's enough. You are, if you're listening, if you're doing, you are so important, and you are enough just as you are. That's where we start. That's where we start.
And you are not alone.
No, please know that you're not alone. Every day I send loving kindness to caregivers all over the world who are trying their best and doing their best to give care to loved ones, and sometimes people that they don't necessarily love. I include those. I have to, because I have friends that are doing so much for people, and they're not their aunt or their uncle or their mom or
Well,
their
they
dad.
weren't a very good mom or dad.
I don't know what. That's right. And they're
I had a caregiver
still.
come into a support group one time. She said, my mother was a drug addict for my entire life. She never took care of me, and now I have to take care of her. And I said, if you can find it in your heart and you can forgive her and you can do that, okay. And if you can't, then you can find someone that can care for her. You don't have to do it.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last thing today is have a laugh, everybody.
It's been great to talk to you, Linda. Thank you so much for
You too.
inviting me.
All right, we'll chat again soon. Have a delicious day.
Okay, I definitely will. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.